Hey there, everybody. How's it going today? I'm going to be brutally honest right here. I am pissed off about what's going on right now. And I know a lot of people are very emotional about what's happening. But showing emotion and having empathy for people, it's not a weakness. It's a strength. And it's one that brings me tighter with my community and my people, and the people that I respect and revere. When I see somebody push a 75-year-old man to the ground, and everyone walks by, it disgusts me. I'm starting off with that particular angle because I think it's an important one. So today I'd like to talk about what's going on with the police. And I know a lot of people have strong support for the police, and they have this idea that without cops, everything would just descend into chaos. And, I'd like to believe that that is true. But unfortunately, this isn't the story that's being told right now. I went down to the protest in Portland the other day. I decided I was going to document it. I brought my camera, my press pass, I was dressed like a normal person. No crazy black, headbands and complete, I was there to document what was going on. And I was standing up against the fence near the Justice Center filming when all of a sudden the police said, "If you tamper with the fence, you will be shot at. You will be used non-lethal rounds and tear gas and whatnot." Nobody messed with the fence. And then all of a sudden, tear gas just started shooting. Now, it wasn't the standard procedure of pushing protesters back with tear gas. This was cops launching flashbang grenades, tear gas, and a variety of other fireworks and pyrotechnics, it seemed, into the crowd. And locking them into an intersection where we had to run through a wall of fucking gas to get out. I was choking, coughing, my eyes were watering, I couldn't even see where I was going. And I thought, I'm just here documenting people who are angry and want change. And our own police force, is just making it worse. I don't know how to start on this particular subject, but I started with the 75-year-old guy. If you haven't seen the video by now, then you're probably one of the few. Because when my son asked me about it, I thought he was talking about the other guy. There were a bunch of cops moving in a different state. I don't recall which one, but he had a cane. He was trying to get out of the way, and they just pushed him down. Hit the curb, got all fucked up. Yesterday, there was a line of police. It's still light out. It's not dark at all. It's like 8 p.m., 7, whatever the curfew was in Buffalo, New York. And a line of Special Operations Force officers started pushing up the street. Now, there happened to be media covering this, and they were standing off to the side. An old man, 75-year-old man, he's pretty tall. He walks up to the officer and he tries to talk to him. The cop pushes him down. The guy falls, slams his head on the concrete, and he starts to bleed out of his ear. Now, you might use the one bad apple analogy. But if one bad apple can push over an old man, and 20 fucking officers can just walk over his fucking body, it's disgusting. And it turns out, from what I've read, and I haven't confirmed this, that all 57 officers in the special response team resigned after that. And my initial thought was, that's great. Maybe it's in support of the old man. But no, it was in support of the officers charged. If you, as a police officer, cannot stand up for your citizens and say, hey, you hurt this old man, because you are so enamored with your group, then you miss the point that you are a fucking public servant. When people talk about a few bad apples in the police force, they fail to add the other part of that discussion, which is a few bad apples spoil the bunch. From what I've seen with a child who was pepper sprayed in Seattle, from the old people who were pushed down, these are just the ones that get the media attention. Why? Because they're white people, or they're extreme cases, or they're, if you see cops going and beating and knocking people down, a lot of people just say, well, they deserved it. They were rioting. And I've heard this argument a lot of times. What is a riot to you? Because I will tell you, I was there in person. I was in Portland. We were not rioting. We were emotional and loud. Now there are 6 lawsuits, at least, going against the Portland Police Department because of that night while I was there. And one of them was a lady who was just trying to get to got off the max and was going to her job, or going to the max from her job. And the police shot her straight up with rubber bullets. You know, this is a fucking rubber bullet. I had a friend tell me, you know, he's like, oh, I thought they were really small. No, they're not small. And these are designed to be shot and bounced off of the ground. That is the official way that you were trained to use them. Police were not doing that. They were shooting you directly. There's not a single scratch on this thing. They were aiming directly at people. These right here are Safariland brand small tear gas grenades, which they basically tossed nonchalant throughout the whole town. This right here is a pocket tactical flashbang grenade. Now, I picked up all of these off the street after this. I was dumb enough, after everybody got pushed back, to mob back through the empty streets with all the cops there and try to collect these items so I could at least show that, yes, this was really happening. That, yes, the police are tear gassing people. Because if it was like Washington, D.C., you could have somebody deny that they ever did it. Now, the idea is that people are denying that they're using pepper spray. Or, sorry, they're denying that they're using these, tear gas, quote. I would ask you, what is tear gas? Because you can see the media holding these canisters up. The one particular one right here, which is the aerosol OC vapor that I picked up off the street while we were just standing there. It's oleoferin capsicum, which is a pepper agent. That is what tear gas is. If you look at the definition, you can go to the website, you can look at the page where they sell them and see exactly what they're designed for. They're actually designed for indoor use, for prison riots and things like that. Now, do I say that tear gas should never be used? That's not my opinion. I mean, I don't... If you have a bunch of people killing each other and looting and destroying, perhaps it would be a good use. But you know that tear gas is banned by international courts, international agreements for warfare. You can't even use tear gas in warfare. Yet they can use it in their own public. And launching them nonchalant, just into crowds of people. A lot of people I was around got hit. And these things are not soft, you know? So what happened that night is I thought, well, yes, there are some rowdy people out there, but I'm going to tell you about the story of what happened to my son and I, because I went with my 25-year-old son. He was angry too. He brought a couple friends. We went down there. We stood with the fence. He held his sign up. I had my camera on him the whole time before they started launching the gas. And I'll get to the end of that story in a little while. I should cover the main points I want to cover here. There's a lot of talk about Antifa and, pallets of bricks being delivered to cities, and everybody's just trying to cause panic and fires, and everybody just wants to loot. The people who are focusing on that are completely missing the point. That their neighbors, their citizens, hundreds of thousands of people are standing in the streets because they're angry about police brutality and violence. And if you're not standing by your neighbors, and you're just listening to authority, then you're one of the sheep. You're one of the people who just believes what you're told. And unless you've had an incident yourself, you never understand how corrupt the cops fucking are. From the time I was 16, 15 years old, I got harassed constantly by cops. I learned a lot about what to say and what not to say. And I also learned later that a lot of people had never experienced this. And they're the ones that with the mentality of, well, don't commit crimes and you won't get in trouble. Just fucking absurd. When we were in Portland the other night, there were some people who pulled barriers across the road in Portland. Now, the police, just after a while, started just zigzagging up and down the streets with their loudspeaker and this thing playing saying, get off the streets or you'll be attacked, you'll be gassed, whatever. Even in small groups of 2 people, they were harassing, arresting, and tackling people. And at that point, we'd already left the protest. It was past midnight. We were walking north up the street. And there was these barricades somebody was pulling into the street. Now, this was shown on our local KGW helicopter footage, which is probably removed at this point. A lot of these videos are getting removed, but I watched what was happening. There was a barricade in the street, a bunch of crap spread in the street. A bunch of protesters went out into the street to move the barricades because they knew it was going to cause problems if the cops came through there. So as they're dragging, you can see it on the footage, as they're dragging the barricades away, a bunch of cop cars drive up the street. What do? They speed up and they plow through the barricade, almost hitting all of the people, not knowing what's going on, not understanding. Then when I read the article in the morning, it said, well, the police saw someone pouring accelerant on the pile and they believed they were going to light it on fire. It's complete bullshit. And without the camera footage, you'd believe it. Same with the guy in Buffalo, the 75-year-old man that got pushed down. The original police release was that the guy tripped and fell. And then as soon as a mainstream news organization came out, all of a sudden they have to correct it and say, okay, our cops pushed him over. You know, the mainstream wants to focus on the looting. They want to focus on the deaths. All of them do. I don't watch mainstream media. I listen to the stories, and at this point in history, we are all journalists. You want to know what's scary? I have a press pass that I can actually show cops that I'm legitimately signed up, under the, as an independent journalist. I hid that pass because they've been targeting anybody who's a journalist. If they're going to target mainstream organizations, if they're going to arrest CNN reporters, arrest Australian reporters, Canadian reporters, if they're going to tell a reporter to get on the ground while he has his press pass up in the air and then just walk past him and mace his face, like they did. I mean, there was the owner of a restaurant who was shot during a scuffle because cops thought they heard a gunshot, and they started shooting. They ended up shooting a guy who ran a barbecue place in Kentucky, where he fed cops for free. Shooting weapons indiscriminately kills people. And this is what the police have been doing for a long time. I've seen enough videos of them shooting a guy in the back 7 fucking times when he's running away to be disgusted. And if anybody thinks this is maybe something new to me or that I'm just picking up on what's going on in the world and talking about it, bullshit. This actually affects me. I've fucking been pissed at cops for a long time. And I thought I had no support. And all of a sudden, here we go. Now people are speaking up about their experiences. It's bullshit what's going on right now. The cops have been attacking medics. In Portland, there were cars driving around with red crosses on them that were handing water to people who were protesting and giving them milk when they were tear gassed to pour in their eyes. I have a video of myself just dumping all this milk over my head. And the cops released a report saying that they were pulling over cars and arresting people because they were handing out weapons. This is the kind of shit that people believe. This is why when somebody tells me, well, you just listen to the mainstream narrative, I say, no, I fucking went there. Did you? Do you go to these things? Do you actually understand what's really going on out there? Or are you just listening to the president tell you, oh, these are bad people? Sorry, but all the people in the nation aren't bad. We're just sick of bad people. And we're not going to put up with it anymore. And we have so much fucking backing and so much frustration behind our cause that we won't stop until there are results. And it's not just about saying, fire our cops or cops are all shitty. In fact, when I was at the protest, this lady walked by me and she goes, all cops are bad in front of the whole crew. And I looked at her and I said, that's ignorant. People looked at me funny. I said, no, not all cops are bad. I said, there's enough bad cops out there, but to assume that all people are bad means you haven't met them all, right? I don't select single cops or say all cops should die or all cops are bad. I know that there are good police out there. But if you are complacent and if you are compliant and if you don't stand up for your fellow citizens that you're sworn to protect, then you're a bad cop. So every single police officer that walked past that old man who fell, they all deserve to be fired. Humanity is what this is about, and people are tired of this invisible, shield. And you want to know what's worse? They've brought in like 12 different organizations, military, prison bureau, and guess what? The police are now blocking out their names and their badge numbers. They're removing their pins. And when one guy was asked on video why, he said, it comes down from the top. We have a bunch of anonymous thugs that are posing as police. If you're not culpable and responsible for the decisions you make, You're not a cop. You're an employee of me. You're an employee of the people. We hire you, we pay you through our tax dollars. And if you don't take care of your citizens, regardless of how you feel, you're a failed cop. I saw a couple of videos of cops breaking windows in businesses. It disgusted me. There was the story of the umbrella man, some random white guy with the gas mask on walking along breaking windows. And I thought, not to get all conspiratorial, but a lot of these guys want to cause trouble. They want to make us look bad. They want to make people who are protesting real corruption look like the enemy. And in the past, they've always succeeded. The protesters have always been the enemy. There have always been a big group of people to say, oh, just go home, whatever, you don't understand. That doesn't work this time. I believe that the COVID experience of being locked at home for months and being able to watch these things unfold has put people in a completely different mentality. And let me tell you, I've been very cautious about catching COVID-19 or catching coronavirus, whatever, for the last several months. Wash my hands, I wear a mask. How dumb am I to go down to a protest packed in with all those people? That's how important it was. That's how important I feel it is, that I'm willing to risk my own health to stand up for my fellow man. And so who are the real snowflakes in this case? They're being quite revealed. They're the Karens of the world. The Karens have become the middle-aged woman who complains to every manager about anything that's going on. It's become quite a trend, and I find it pretty humorous because I know a lot of Karens in this world. They're the ones who want to, tell you how to live your life, the ones who call the cops on a black guy for telling you to put your dog on a leash. There were too many cases that had built up to this point where the kindling pile was so high. George Floyd is not the reason. George Floyd is the match. And when there's one thing MLK said, because I did watch this thing a while back about how MLK had, how after he died, the white people, let's say, had used a lot of his speeches to try to twist his words and say peaceful protest is the only way. What were the results of that peaceful protest? The truth is, MLK said, rioting or a riot is the voice of the unheard. And if you don't understand that, and if you can't comprehend that, yelling about it isn't going to do any good. Saying, look at all these looters, isn't going to do any good. You have to address the problem at the root. The looters, for the most part, are organized crime groups. And hate to say it, but there's a lot of white kids out there just trying to cause trouble. Several videos I've watched. In Portland, there was one the other day of these two kids just trying to break a window to put it on their live stream. Yes, there are those people out there who just want to get fucking noticed. It disgusts me, but that's not the bigger picture. We had thousands of people in our town over the last few days, peacefully standing and speaking their minds. If you want to focus on the guy who spray paints or breaks windows or loots, then you're missing the bigger picture. And for the first time in history, we can see you. And I'm talking to the cops. We can see you. We have cameras everywhere now. If the media hadn't caught that old man falling down, people would have just believed he tripped. But the fact that a mainstream organization captured it and that everybody's live streaming, it becomes quite apparent what's going on. A total lack of control, a total lack of respect and understanding. Now, if there was a crowd of 1,000 protesters after that old man, that would be one thing. There was nobody. They pushed past his body laying on the ground bleeding out of his ear to arrest some guy with a sign. It's fucking done. We've had it. So now I'll tell you the story of what happened to my son and I. We had been protesting through the town, holding up signs, taking photos all night long. And we were about 8-10 blocks from the main chaos. We were walking back towards our cars. There was 3 of us walking along the street, I think. When all of a sudden, 4 cop cars, SUVs roll up and all these cops jump out. They had dudes rolling around on vans just hanging off, waiting to bust somebody. It was fucking scary and intimidating. So they all jump off of their cars and they run towards us. And what do they say? They say, get the fuck on the ground. My son and his friend ran one direction, and I ran the other direction. And a person might say, well, why did you run from the cops? I say, because I didn't want to get my ass beat. He got caught. I didn't. There's no point in both of us getting busted for doing nothing. So the cops tackle him to the ground. He says, I'm not resisting, I'm not resisting. And they twist his arm really hard back, throw him in handcuffs, or zip ties, or whatever they're using. And they put him in the fucking paddy wagon. Now, I was pissed at this point. I was having to duck and weave to avoid cops who might want to beat my ass for absolutely no reason. And if I wasn't angry at that point, that really set me off. I was like, they got my son, I'm angry. For no reason. I was with him, and I had been filming for the last 20 minutes before that. So, what the cops, it turns out they said, was, you threw a bottle at my officers, you fucker. And he said, I didn't throw any bottles. And he didn't. He's not like that. You know, I raised my kids better than that. They're not going to throw bottles at cops. The cop obviously didn't believe him, threw him in the wagon. My son, he's a pretty aware kid. So he started talking with the cop. He's like, dude, you fucking got the wrong guy. I don't know what you're talking about. And he said, well, we have you on video, which I know isn't true. And this is where it got interesting. You know, he started talking to the cops. He's a good talker. And the cop said he could tell by the look in the guy's eye that he knew he'd got the wrong guy. He knew he'd fucked up. But when you're in that panic mode, you know, you just grab any guy. My son was wearing a white t-shirt with a picture of, God, who was it? Philosopher, God damn it. It was like it was a really obvious shirt. So, you know, the cops must have thought that they could get the one guy in the white shirt that must have done something, right? As he was going to the jail, he said that the cops told him, you know, we kill white boys too. These are the little quotes that you have to remember. And this is why I'm documenting these things and I write them down. So we got to the station, got booked. They said that he was getting charged with a felony for rioting. And he started talking with the people. There were only like 5 or 6 people that got arrested that night that were in there with him. And I didn't know why he was arrested. I really didn't. I thought they were just arresting anybody who was on the street. And I didn't realize till later that's what happened. But he said that he started talking to this one cop and explaining the situation down at the station. And the lieutenant, I believe, he said it was the chief, but it must have been the lieutenant or something, came up and he said, don't listen to those guys. They're all full of shit. They all lie. Something to that effect. Or they'll just tell you whatever you want to hear. And so we have a legitimate citizen here who is trying to explain his position. And the lieutenant is telling his officers not to listen to him. This is the problem with police. It's not you. You are not a team. You work for us. You can stick together. You can have your, connections, your barbecues, have cops night out. That's great. But remember who you serve. Us. And when we stand up and we want some fucking results, you better provide it. Or else we're going to keep coming back. The interesting thing I found about the other night was that of all the thousands of people mobbing the streets, I felt solidarity and safety with the so-called rioters. I didn't feel like my life was in danger. I didn't feel like anybody was going to hurt me, stab me, punch me. You know what I was scared of? The police. Because they don't want to hear your opinion. They don't want to hear what you have to say. They don't discriminate when it comes to, arresting a bunch of people who are standing peacefully. And with what happened the other day at the White House, where they gassed all those protesters in Lafayette Park, the president comes out and says, we didn't use tear gas. We've never used tear gas. Oleoresin capsicum is a pepper agent. It is tear gas. It's the exact same thing. And the fact that people are really believing that the cops weren't using these tools, it means that For all the people who say, oh, you just believe too much mainstream media, no, you do. You believe the president, you believe the officials, if you believe the cops themselves, you're one of the greatest sheep there are out there. You know? Get down there and experience it yourself. I would urge anybody who thinks that protesters are all just a bunch of angry troublemakers to go down there and really stand with a rally and see what happens. It's going to depend, of course, on what state you're in, what area you're in. I'm not denying that there's looting. But if there wasn't looting, do you think anybody would pay attention? I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying that the looting is a side effect of mass crowds of people. And if the cops really want to ease that, if the government really wants to stop these things, then they need to, agree to the will of the people. And I have a whole list of demands I've been working on. I don't want to read them all right now, but, they're pretty simple things. I mentioned in a previous video, but, it's not just a bunch of people screaming in the street for nothing. And we want post-training, which is, police officer standardized training to learn how to de-escalate. We want citizen participation in hiring practices and citizen participation in hiring police chiefs. I would like to see body cameras streamed to the internet consistently when an officer is on duty. I don't give a fuck if you're at lunch or not. Everything should be streamed as long as you're on duty. You're held to a higher standard. And if you don't want to take that, then don't take the job. We would like public records of statistics regarding arrest, race, and cause, because you'd be surprised that a lot of departments don't share information on that. I would like to eliminate civil forfeiture, meaning that the police don't get what they seize from people. That makes a huge difference in what they're willing to take and who they're willing to harass. Obviously, no stop and frisk or search without proof or evidence. Stop shooting to kill. That seems like a pretty obvious one. But if somebody's coming at you with a baseball bat and you can shoot them in the leg and you don't have to shoot them in the chest, people have a lot of mental breakdowns. In some areas, up to 50% of people who are shot have a mental illness. It's totally unacceptable, completely. Which means that instead of having so many cops, we could take half of those cops and turn them into mental health evaluators or people who can help people and talk to them. Or at least take a mental health counselor along with you if there's a call where someone is suicidal, somebody is in danger or endangering others. And cops should be charged like any other citizen. They shouldn't get special protections if they shoot somebody just because they're a cop. If they can be proven that it was murder, like it did, with Derek Chauvin, the guy was angry. I did a little digging and found out that his wife had separated with him the day before and filed for divorce. The guy was angry. It was a moment of weakness, frustration, right? People would say, oh, he just had a bad day. No, he had something like 17 other claims of abuse against him and like 3 charges. Letting police remain when they already have charges against them is obscene to me. Because there are a lot of places of business, workplaces, warehouses, that if you have one charge against you, they won't even hire you. But for some reason, a cop can be a cop after being busted 20 times or having 20 suits filed against them. There's a problem there. Another thing is to cops work in the town of residence or close by where they live, and no quotas. That's a big one. No quotas. You shouldn't have to have an arrest quota. That's obscene. How do you deal with an arrest quota if there's no crime? You create a crime. You find people who might be smoking a joint. You find a way to bust people for just living their lives. And I'm disgusted by it. I've seen it happen to myself and my friends, my son the other night. And we've had it. We've really had it. And this isn't just about one incident. This is about multiple. And it's not even just about police, to be honest. This is about government power and control over the people that they are hired to serve. Imagine if you hired a butler to clean your house, and he started telling you what to do and how to live. You'd tell him to fuck right off, wouldn't you? What if you hired a cook, and he started telling you what you should eat? You'd tell him to fuck right off, wouldn't you? If you hired a landscaper and he decided he was going to make your lawn and your yard the way he wanted, you would tell him to fuck right off, wouldn't you? So why the hell do we allow cops to do whatever they want and allow our government to roll over people? because we're not paying attention. People are paying attention now. Thanks for listening.